Welcome.
Welcome, Andy. Happy
Welcome.
Friday. Happy Good Friday.
Happy Friday. Bambos Charles Demetriou is not with us today because he wasn't feeling well. His
Absolutely not a good Friday.
Not for him it wasn't.
No.
He got his telephone stolen at the supermarket 2 days ago. How I don't know. And because of that, he certainly had to do some logistical things that he wasn't expecting.
Yeah, such distress.
He seemed okay, actually. I was impressed with how cool he was under pressure.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did a good job.
pent up distress. Now he's sick.
Yeah, who knows? I don't want to. He's watching right now. I know he's one of those watchers at the moment. So let's not project. Otherwise, we're going to
Yeah.
get comments from him. He's not going to relax.
Yeah, well, Bombos, that's what you get when you get sick. So now you have me on the show, and I can talk all kind of stuff about you.
Exactly everything that he wouldn't want to be heard.
Revenge.
Peter Taylor is on today. We know Peter, or we kind of know Peter through his wife, Juliet Reynolds, who maybe will lose Reynolds when she gets married to Taylor. So maybe it's Juliet Taylor. But we know her as Juliet Reynolds right now.
Okay.
Was that understood or no?
Juliet is Juliet to me.
So Juliet's Juliet. So Juliet basically has introduced us to Peter some years ago. It just at least to know that of his existence, and of course we've been friends for I guess 20 years now. She knew me when I first started in business, and she took me under her wing, and she made sure I didn't make too many big mistakes. So I'm very grateful to her in my life, for sure. And she told me that Peter would make a good guest for the show. And then I looked at his resume, and oh, by the way, we haven't introduced the show yet.
Oh,
God, see, this is what happens when I do this. We're on with Peter Taylor, and we're going to talk about his book, The Lazy Project Manager, and basically how to get all your work done in half the time and go home on time. The way we're going to do that on?
A wonderful chaos.
You can whisper it, baby. A wonderful chaos.
A wonderful chaos.
I'm still waiting for the moment when I forget to do the intro altogether.
Well, luckily there's always someone else here to remind you of stuff. So my job here is to remind Andy. That's all I do.
Thank you. And thank you for joining me. I always know when people see you on the screen, they're always fascinated and they come. There's far more viewership on the live shows. So you have something that draws people in.
I'm a curiosity. I get that.
So Peter Taylor I wouldn't call him just a project manager because he's done this for 35 years. He's done over 450 presentations in 25 countries.
Yeah.
And his book, The Lazy Project Manager, I wrote in the intro, is the de facto standard for people who are looking to just get a sense of what project management is, how to do it well. And that book has been downloaded over 60,000 times.
Yeah, and the fact that Peter has been doing this for decades, I think for the newer generation of project manager, they can look up to him and see how they're going to turn out after 35 years.
Yes, we'll use him as a gauge for what you could look if you were to look into a ball and see where you're going to end up. One thing I thought was nice is that, and I said it to Peter, and I saw his face wince before we came on, is that I've often felt that project management was a requirement when people weren't able to communicate, or it was the what would you say? It was the excuse to put more structure in. Because I always see life as a fight between structure and flexibility. Structure and flexibility. It's this tension that exists, and the ultimate flexibility can exist if the communication flows well, if everyone is aligning around values and around goals and around milestones, and then obviously you need to coordinate around that. But that for me is my dream: is how do you create the ultimate flexibility? But unfortunately, when projects become very complex, they need more structure, and then that's the balance I see in life.
Yeah, interesting, because the one thing that came to mind was, how somehow that reminds me of kindergarten teacher, but maybe that sounds too condescending. But let's bring
It reminds me of a kindergarten teacher.
no me of kindergarten.
Oh, Jesus, we're bringing him on.
Wow.
Hello, Peter. Nice to see you.
Hi, Peter.
Hello. I think we can agree that yeah, Julia, it's a bit like Madonna. She's just known by the one name. It doesn't matter what her surname's going to be in September.
Exactly.
It's just
Yes.
Julia, and I'm grateful.
Is she going to give up her name or not? Is she going to be what's going to happen on that day? Have you agreed to it yet, or is it still open?
She says she's going to change. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah. But I don't think it really matters. I mean, she is. Yeah, she's Juliet. End of. You know.
She is Juliet. That's for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So you gathered my feelings. I mean, I know there's a massive complexity when projects get interdepartmental. Everyone's got their own agenda. Everyone's frustrated with the fact that no one's delivering on time. So I understand that project management is a requirement to get big projects done. But I've often felt like a really good project management, if you've got shit communications, actually is going to fail anyways. That's always been my feeling.
You're probably right. I'm just trying to find my right place here, because so far you introduced me, you talk about decades on one hand, Andy, thanks for that. Ronnie, you talk about kindergarten, and Juliet will probably agree that I'm somewhere in between. She talks about me as the most grown-up 8-year-old out there. So yeah, I think that's a happy tag. Projects. Actually, I really like this, because your title, A Wonderful Chaos, is for me is a great description of one of the best projects when it's happening, because there are elements of chaos. I mean, chaos is a very productive thing. And if you can actually weave all that together as a project manager and create that thing, I believe you end up with a wonderful chaos that truly delivers something. But you're right. I mean, you talked about communication, and I think if people are doing projects without realizing they're doing projects, and they don't do it through any discipline or structure. We've all done stuff, if you've all got, I've got a wedding coming up, it's not. I dare run it as a project. I'd be dead if I did it as a project. But we are creating something. It is a temporary endeavor. It is going to bring about a unique outcome. It is a project by any definition, but we're just doing it through communication. No one is delegated project manager. Me, I am project manager.
Yeah. But that's really the question. What's the threshold? Because I can tell you, I'd love to share like a little bit about how my life works. Mm-hmm. I like to do, I have like 4 levels of management of myself. First is my inbox. So an email comes in. If it's in my inbox, it usually means I need to do something about it. So now I get overrun because I've got a little bit too many. So I end up putting it in my calendar, and then I get shifted to my calendar, which is now my next level of project management. Now my 3rd level of project management is an app called Do. And I pull that out once every 3 months because I feel overwhelmed. And then I need to put a task list so that I can feel a sense of achievement. And then it goes to, okay, now I'm in an organizational structure, and now there's interdependencies. And now it's like, I need to get one of these horrible, overarching methodologies that forces us to all comply to one way of working together. Yeah. That's how I've experienced my own life.
I'm going to go back. Can I go back to the kindergarten thing? Because
please go wherever. It's chaos.
By the way, what I meant by kindergarten was, as a project manager, you're like the kindergarten teacher, because these are people.
That's it. Yes.
People don't know what they're doing. They uncoordinated. They play around. They giggle. They're happy or unhappy. They fight. But you need someone, the grown up, like you said, to kind of, hey, we are all together going to go that way. So.
And that is the essence of the story. So that's a brilliant lead into it, because I instantly remember this. This is very popular. I use it in a number of my presentations. And I've also used it in an actual workshop. But the story goes, a kindergarten teacher, what he does, he gets the group of kindergarten kids. And let's say there's 30 of them, big group. He gets them to all blow up a balloon. So they've got a different color balloon each, and they write their name on the balloon. And then when a few of them will pop their own balloon, because they're going to do that, they blow it up again, and then they write the name. Right. So they've all got their balloon, different colors. And then what he does, he gets them to put them down, and then everybody kicks them all around the classroom. And then he says, go and find your balloon. And he gives it almost 5 minutes. And the way this story goes, at the end of the 5 minutes, nobody's found their balloon. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of shouting. You can imagine like 30 kindergarten kids having a great time. Nobody has got their balloon. And then the teacher says, stop. And then he says, go and pick up the balloon next to you. Look at the name, go and give it to that person. And within less than 2 minutes, everybody's got their balloon.
Oh.
And really, that's how I see project management, is that kind of guidance of, vision and purpose. Where are we going? What's the direction? What are the rules we're going to follow? And now go and do the stuff. And it is the team that delivers it. So, yeah, that's a great lead into that story. It's a story I like. And of course, it's a great visual as well on a presentation.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, I'm tempted to try it out with kids or adults.
It's a great team building thing. You need quite a few people, and you need a confined space for the balloons. And to be fair, if you do it with adults, then usually about half of the people have got their balloon. To be honest, it's the kindergarten kids go crazy. Okay. But yeah, that's it's one of my favorite ones. Up there with building a spaghetti tower, which is the other great classic project management exercise. That's good fun. So communication's at the heart of it. Absolutely. I mean, whatever you read, it depends, but somewhere between 70 and 90% of what a project manager does is some form of communication.
Yeah. I guess in a way, would you be looking or working with tools, or do the companies you work with decide the tools and then you just say, I'm going to come in to make sure the tools are used well? So what's your role often when you go into a company?
It depends what I'm doing. If I'm actually, I bounce between sort of independent consultancy type thing and actually running, a project management office, which I've done a number of times. If I'm running the project management office, if I'm in charge of all the project managers, I'm often part of helping select the tools that we're going to use. But at the end of the day, the tools are the tools, and there are good ones and there are reasonably good ones out there. It's a matter of getting people to consistently use those tools and be very honest in the information they're putting in there. And that's one of the biggest challenges to project managers, is they feel so much under pressure that they hide the truth. A little bit of over optimism, shall we say? The schedule's late, the budget's blown, the scope is out of the water, etc. What's the status of the project green? Magic. Because they don't want to be shouted at. So it's a matter of overcoming that is one of the big things you have to do with a PM community. Is if you're honest and we understand the situation, we can help. That's it.
Yeah. It's funny. You have a.
No, I'm just curious. Would you say that the success of a project manager is measured by whether the project comes to a successful end or not? Because if you think just literally on the word, their job is just to manage the project. They're not a guarantee that the project will be successful. So whether a project becomes successful or not is not really to give credit to or to be blamed on project manager. But
you've just started a 2-hour conversation now. You talk about what the hell do you mean by project success? The project manager's job is to take something that has been defined as a project and to deliver it successfully to its point of conclusion with the expected deliverables at the end. Now, the problem with projects, in the old days, it was, you can hear terms like triple constraint or the iron triangle, that you could deliver on time, to budget, to scope at an acceptable level of quality. Actually, the reality is that is not success by any means. I've delivered projects like that, and the clients have been unhappy. I've also completely screwed up and delivered under budget or over budget and under scope, etc. And the clients have been quite happy. Success is a very complex thing to measure. And project managers these days have to be aware of it. The main thing is, are they delivering business benefit at the end of it, even if that business benefit is different than what was defined at the start? We're seeing projects these days that, whilst they're bigger and more complicated, they're actually over a shorter period of time. So that helps, because in the old days, it wasn't uncommon to have like a two-year project, something like that. Well, things change in business over 2 years. But you've got to keep an eye on what success means. Success means what does the business need right now? What are the politics? What is the culture? What is the kind of approach to the repeatability and longevity of the project deliverables, etc. And often that means things change as you go along. And so if you deliver what was defined several months ago, you could actually fail.
There's some interesting things that I found when I'm interacting with people in projects, and you were talking a little bit about I'll call it almost the denial, or what is the term you like to use a lot when you look at everything favorably? So any information you twist to make.
What do you mean? Like a
confirmation bias. Yeah.
So
what I've
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. So we all do that. Confirmation bias. It's part of what makes
But what I love is that, and I've seen it happen so often. I'll be in meetings, and I'm usually working more with like a nuance, like a little subtle thing that someone doesn't say is far more interesting to me than anything they've said. So, so one of the questions that I see that people will ask is the confirmation bias: is it going to get done on time? Yes. Are you confident? Are people participating? Yes, yes, yes. So like it's almost asking questions to validate the desire you have, so you can go and tell the next person up that you've actually done what you're required, your due diligence. But the thing that I've often found that the question that I like love more is, what if anything would stop you from reaching the agreed goal? So it would be, and then I love it if someone says nothing. So then my next question is always, so you're 100% guaranteed confident that it'll be, and then they'll always answer no.
Right. No, I think it's a good approach. It's an approach I take as well. You know, what's going to stop you achieving the next milestone, the end of the project, wherever it may be? Because then you do get a far more honest response back from people, as opposed to the yes, no. And of course, you know, behind it now is, you know, with projects, and particularly if you're using one of the, you know, the modern tools, etc. There's a lot of data that sits behind it, so you know it's harder to hide things to a degree, because it's, you know, it's tracking the data. And you know, with the rise of AI that we're seeing now, I mean, particularly in project management, it's going to fundamentally change in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow. It'll be able to anticipate where there are the gaps in the actual delivery.
Yeah. I mean, Gartner said that, you know, by 2030, 80% of what a project manager does today, and the report came out in 2020, 80% of what a project manager does today will be done by AI. So, which is a good thing, I think, because actually it's the bit I hated when I was doing projects. You know, I hated all that having to do that regular reporting, analysis, etc. But you know, what it's going to do is it's going to free project managers to focus on the people, which is going to be a really, really good thing. The AI can do all that stuff. It's welcome to it. I mean, it'll do it better. It'd be far more predictive. It'd be far more objective. There will be no personal bias in there at all. So that's a fantastic thing. But it will free up project managers to do. I mean, when I started in project management, I had no idea what I was doing, and I was moderately successful. And the only way I was moderately successful is because I worked with people. That's all I had. I didn't have the mechanics. I got that later on, many years after I started.
Yeah.
So I think freeing project managers up to work with people, because projects are about people.
Yeah.
I mean, who else can create chaos other than people? That's pretty.
Were you using, like, when you were first starting out, were you using like Excel sheets and like putting like designated roles and linear like columns, or how did you start with the tool?
T cards.
Oh, really?
T cards. You know, bits of paper on a bit. Yeah, I mean, you can explain to the audience what the hell I'm talking about now. Like a metal rack with lots of little slots in, a little T-shaped card. It was sitting, so it was T-shaped, so it didn't fall down. That was the whole point.
There was that T-shape that had the edge on the top, so it wouldn't fall in.
Wouldn't fall it down, and then you'd write the task or the activity. You put it in, and you can move things around. Yeah, that's all I had.
Wow.
I have no idea what that is.
Imagine like a big metal cabinet, and the cabinet has paper cards, and when you put them in, because the top is a little bit wider, it doesn't fall in. So it rests on the top, and then you're flipping these cards over and over as the project proceeds, so that you're always, but I must admit, I could imagine us going back to that, because it's an incredible visual representation.
It's not much different.
Yeah,
it's not much different to Kanban boards these days. I mean, particularly moving stuff, etc. But I'm sorry, I'm talking about something. When project management was and the dinosaurs were on the planet at the same time, that's where I started. I mean, whatever's available. But it worked because it was very visual, and now we kind of replicated that in a digital sense. So it's not that different.
Well, I've often found that paper and this very touchable and you can interact with it creates a much more visceral reaction than the detached computer screens.
Yes.
So at least for me, I've seen that having a visual representation on the actual physical wall often has a much stronger, it's almost like I'm more accountable to it if I see it on the wall than if it's in a computer that feels like one simple click and it'll go back, it'll delay it by 2 weeks. That feeling.
No, still for big projects, I still love to have in the days when we're allowed to like a conference room meeting with post-it notes up with colors for red stars, or you can do it on a big sort of conference table as well. You can do it with like folded over cards, because you've got this very visual thing, and people can just literally pick things up and go, "What's this? And how does it? Why is this happening before that?" Then you translate it. Yes, to keep track of anything significant, you translate it into the digital world. But I agree with you. It's very, very, very real when you can actually physically see it.
I must admit, they're one of my favorite cartoons of all time, and I know you know it because it was about 20 years ago, but it still comes up every 3 to 4 years, is the cartoon when it shows basically 8 independent pictures of the hanging tire from a tree, the tree swing. So what the client asked for, what was delivered, what was, and it's such a funny image for me, because if anyone sees it, you've been in a corporate environment, immediately you say, "Oh my God, I know how many times that a customer need has been translated into something that was so far beyond what was asked for, because the interpretation by the person who's taking the first intake, or who's assessing the need." So my question to you is, in project management, like the first step of it, I could imagine, is like somebody who's almost highly intuitive rather than just street smart. I mean, rather than just literally. Because if you take things too literally and you don't hear what the subtle need is in the client, you'll probably overly create the specs for what need to be delivered.
Yeah. I mean, I think these days there's a thing that I refer to as the journey of expectation management. I mean, in the old days when I was part of this world, I mean, most of the projects I've run have been in the kind of software IT industry, and you create some sort of major specification, which in some cases ran to like many volumes of A4 binder, and it'd be locked down, and that's what you had to deliver. Well, that's out the window these days, but I think most organizations, they have this period of time, because when two organizations connect in this way, technology supplier with a client, they're going to learn about each other, and there's got to be a period of trust. And the way I refer to this is that, if you can imagine, there's always this handshake that takes place, because at some point they've come to an agreement. Yeah, we're going to work together. We're going to invest in your technology. You're going to give us great business value. There's going to be superb return on investment. Everything's going to be great. The world's a happy place. There's a kickoff party, and people have a fun time. The real test is how quickly that handshake moves into arm wrestling, arguing over the detail. Mature companies, agile companies, sophisticated companies who understand these sort of project world these days, they have an open mind. Both parties should be very open for quite a long period of time, as, "Oh, okay, that's what you mean by your business need. Oh, that's what you mean by what the technology can do. Right, we're both learning. Because if you lock it down too early, the other image I use a lot is there's a nice picture of a path in a woodland that's kind of going like that. Now, do you have the client and the supplier coming together, or do you have them going away? And you want them coming together, of course, on a single path. And this happens so often that you get so locked down into arguing about the detail, or assumptions are made. That assumptions are very dangerous, of course. And if you don't, it's coming back to your conversation, your opening comment about communication. If you don't keep those channels of communication open and have that kind of flexibility, you're going to have a problem. Yeah.
The word you just used, and it actually feels like if that role does not exist in a client engagement, you're, I would say, an idiot, is someone who's managing client expectations. Because on one level, you can be doing all your work and not hand-holding through their expectations, and they won't be satisfied. Or you could be doing a horrible job, but managing the expectations, and therefore they'll be very happy with what you've delivered.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's almost like not to have that role is shameful. I would go that far in terms of project management for bigger projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are two elements there. I mean, one is, to actually totally make a client happy, you have to exceed their expectations, not even just meet them. But absolutely, I think one is management of expectations. The other one is management of organizational change, the impact of what's going on. That's one that's often missed. The companies spend all their money on the technology, and they get their own organization ready, and they're busy, of course, with business as usual, and nobody's taking care of the kind of transformational change that's taking place.
Yeah.
And that's again is where I see a lot of challenges and sometimes failure.
Yeah, that is actually very how do you call it? It's very relevant because sometimes indeed you bring change, and then you think that your project is to create that change, and after that there is no aftercare. So everybody's gone back to their own normal job, but the environment changes. So people are expected to do different things or behave differently, but then there's not really support or anything after that. That is that yeah, I think
Yeah,
that's
and again, it's human nature. I mean, the other classic out there, who thinks we need to change? Yes. Who wants change for the organization? Yeah. Who wants to change themselves? Oh, I'm perfect. I'm fine. No, leave me alone.
yeah.
And that's what you have to battle with, because in some way, if you put something like this inside an organization, it's probably going to affect most people.
Yeah. Have you ever been or have you ever managed a project where the participants, the key individuals there, actually didn't really want to be part of this project? So they have this.
What do you mean? Has he ever? I would almost ask you, have you ever not?
Well, there's always some difficult person, that's for sure. No, I did have one project, and I mean, to be fair, to be honest, it was a quasi governmental political group in the UK. And they'd seen it all before, they'd done it all before, they'd resisted it all before, and they turned up to meetings and they did nothing really to help. And it was just a passive, almost passive aggressive culture of the organization. Very, very, very difficult. To be fair, it's the only project I was ever thrown off as project manager, and I was quite grateful at the end, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, because I tried to take them on and I failed miserably. And I suspect they never changed. It was just the inbred culture of the organization. So yes, I have.
Yeah, well, governmental organizations don't tend to be the first ones that want to change. You didn't take that job because of the monthly changes that were occurring.
No, definitely not. They didn't get where they are by change rubbish. No.
There was a you said it and you mentioned it. We talked about it subtly a few times, but I'd be curious because a project comes about for a few reasons, I would think, but one of them would be because we want to do something different than the way we've done it till now. And as Ronnie mentioned, as you also mentioned earlier, there's an aspect which is we need to change the way we're doing business. And in changing the way we're doing business, a lot of the implication is that behind that is that something that we're doing till now hasn't been the way we've wanted to do it, which would also mean our culture is not able to deliver or act the way we want it to.
Yeah.
So that's a long-winded lead up to the question is to what degree do you see project management is more about fighting against the culture that's trying to hold itself in place against actually delivering something, a project itself?
I wouldn't use the phrase fighting against the culture. I think it's important for a project manager, particularly an external project manager, is to understand the culture. What is practically achievable, because you can't change culture overnight or after a long period of time. It's really a difficult thing. Was it culture eats strategy for breakfast or whatever it is? It doesn't matter. So you have to understand, and that really was my downfall on that particular project I talked about. Is I tried to take it on, and I lost. I think the project manager who came after me was a little bit wiser, a little bit more experienced, and just played the game a little more gently than I did. So I think you have, as a project manager, you have to understand what you all time. You have to understand the people you're working with, the culture of the organization, the business needs, the political landscape you're operating in. It's more about this is bigger than the little project perhaps that you're delivering. Although they're also supposed to work in partnership with a project sponsor who's supposed to help you with that stuff as well.
Project sponsor, yes.
Yeah, and that might lead to this one, which I think is a good question from Bolalong in South Africa. Who is responsible to make sure that people within the organization are committed to the project? Is it the project owner or the project manager?
It's kind of both, really. I mean, the project manager's job is to actually, assess all of the contributors, all the stakeholders out there, regardless of the level of their involvement, and work hard to make sure they're on board of the project. I mean, I think, certainly at certain levels in the organization, a higher executive level, then it's down to the project sponsor or project owner. or senior reporting officer, whatever term you want to use. It's their job to do that at that level, amongst their peers. And you kind of need that partnership between a good project sponsor and a good project manager.
Yeah, I've sort of found, at least in my experience, that a lot of times when it goes back up to the higher level executive who is supposed to also sponsor it, they're not as strong in their voice as the people that below. And what I've seen happen because of that is that the people below start to use the fact that the executive, whoever is the highest level, isn't strongly supporting the project as an excuse not to be as excited about it.
Yeah, there is a fundamental. I mean, again, I can do a rant on this if you like. There's a fundamental weakness in project sponsorship. I can teach you and all your listeners everything you need to know about project sponsorship in 3 numbers. And those 3 numbers are 85, 83, and 100. That's it. You're experts in project sponsorship across the world. Yeah. One of the other books I did was obviously on project sponsorship. We did some survey research, and it was across the world. It was across many organizations, many industries, different size organizations. And we asked, amongst other things, we asked 3 questions. We said, do you have a project sponsor, senior reporting officer, project owner, whatever term you use? 85% of the companies that responded said, yes, we have project sponsors, which is not bad. I mean, they were all doing projects, so we were never quite sure what the 15% were doing. But let's say 85%, really good number, can be improved upon. The second question is, what do you do as an organization to support, train, guide, mentor, develop your project sponsors? 83% of them came back and said, absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
These are smart, clever people, senior people. They must know how to do the job. They don't. And the real killer is, we then said, how important do you think it is to have a professional project sponsor on your project for project success? 100%, well, it was 99.5%, but I rounded up. Everybody said, yes, it's really important. And that is a situation with project sponsorship out there right now. We spent huge amount, most of my life has been, people have been, organizations, etc., have spent in developing project management. It is so much better than when I started. I mean, people are now taking project management courses. They're becoming professional project managers. There are supportive organizations, external and internal inside the companies. Great stuff. We can always get better. There is absolutely nothing for project sponsors. They just expect you to do the job. So yeah, I told you I can rant.
And I think that's sort of what I experienced in that role of the project sponsor. And by the way, I didn't know you would react that way, but it doesn't surprise me.
Any opportunity.
But because what I've found is that it's almost like they're almost trying to convince themselves that it's important, but they're still not bought into it, and everyone senses it. And because they sense it, they use it against the project. Like even he's not bought into it. So I've seen that throughout a lot of my careers.
I mean, there are some good ones out there, but it's not the general state. I mean, we've got two approaches to this. We can kind of like say, well, it'll sort itself out in 20, 30 years as the generation of project managers move up through the organization. Or actually, if you look at the trillions of dollars invested in projects, we should do something about it now. So, yeah, I started the campaign for real project sponsors quite a few years ago. So it is one of my things.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've seen it as one of the weak points and I see that aligning to again culture. I see that, at least that's my header for it, because if the culture allows people not to take responsibility, which most cultures do, like they give people roles but they don't hold them accountable, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're the project sponsor, but you don't have to deliver anything and we won't hold you accountable when it doesn't work out. That's unfortunately what I often see happening in cultures.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, oh, sorry, go on.
No, how much of that is also awareness? Because some, organizations may not even aware that project sponsors actually, they actually need to know or need to embody or need to do certain things.
I think they underestimate it. That's what I think. What would you say?
Yeah, I agree. They absolutely do. I mean, there are a number of pieces of research out there on this. And, at the heart of it, it's just not seen as part of the day job. It's seen as an extra thing. Oh, you're going to sponsor project. Your job is, senior vice president of this or that. Yeah, but, we're just seeing an ever-increasing amount of, project activity inside organizations. The project-based economy is growing. People need to get real on this and understand. And it's just a fundamental difference between the project world and business as usual world.
Yeah.
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 It's just the dynamics are just different.
We discussed culture, right? But I also see something as a separate to that, which is politics.
Yeah.
So I mean, and they're not separate from one another, but I would say, like, the one thing that if you want to understand how a company functions or dysfunctions, put a project in place where multiple departments need to interact for a common goal.
Yes.
So in your experience there, like, how is it that you see, and I know communications would be a word, but I think it's beyond communications on some levels. How do you see yourself having negotiated politics within an organization when you're doing these project management projects?
This is where I think, if I'm honest, this is where you need a really good partner inside the organization. If you're a client-facing project, which is mostly my world, then you need a good project manager, a project sponsor inside that organization who understands a little bit more about the politics of what's going on. And also, if you're a project manager, it's like anything, you're always anticipating risk. Just anticipate the risk of political implication or impact. Just don't take everything at face value. I mean, it's strange. I mean, a project manager needs to have a high degree of trust, but also, a reasonable level of cynicism as well, I feel. So, just keep a healthy balance between the two.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of times people are actually happy to see projects fail, because basically if somebody else is more responsible for it, then it'll give them the benefit of showing that they're not competent, or all of that kind of crazy.
That all happens. Absolutely, yeah. My advice to project managers is, don't waste huge amounts of your time on this. Don't document everything, don't audit trail everything, don't be prepared, but also have a kind of a mind that says this could be happening, and be prepared to react if it does.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anything coming up for you?
I'm digesting.
Yeah.
This is it can be quite complex, because it's not only about the tangible things, like you said, about there's politics, there is culture, and how much do you have to take into account, or is it a distraction, or can it also even be an asset to get the project going further? So, especially if you're an external consultant hired to do something as a project in a firm, I imagine it must be not that easy to figure out the politics or the culture in such a short time.
It is quite difficult. So all of that goes on, and I'm telling people to be lazy. It's great, isn't it?
Well, I think the problems are the lazier you are, the quicker the problems are going to show up, because you're not trying to fix things as they're occurring.
No.
So
that's lazy. Yeah, I mean, what I talk about is the term I use is productive laziness. It's fine. It's working smarter, not harder. It's it's a behavioral difference between project managers who focus on the really important things and trust their team to move everything else along, to project managers who get buried in detail, working really busy. But it'll come. I was running a project team for a big German company, had about 117 project managers working for me, and I saw a behavioral difference. Half of them were working, on average, fairly typical weeks. Now, we know projects go up and down. They're not flat. It makes them fun and exciting. But on average, they were working 40, 48, 5-hour weeks. And they were being reasonably successful. And the other half were just working crazy, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks. And they were being just as successful. And that's when I started looking at it. What is the difference? The difference is around the levels of communication, the levels of responsibility, the art of delegation, the involvement. All the things I got wrong in my early days. I did everything wrong. I had a huge project around for 2.5 years, and it was a great opportunity to learn some many lessons. And I wouldn't allow anything to happen without me being involved. No conversational decision could take place without me being involved. No communication could take place without me reviewing it first. And I was slowing the project down, and I was making myself physically ill. I suffer from stress at the end of it.
Yeah.
And at the end of the whole thing, the project was successful. And I looked back and thought, I really enjoyed that, but there's no way I can do that for another 20 or so years. It will kill me. So what can I do differently? And that really is the heart of the lazy project manager and the principle. It's like, I want to do this. I want to be successful. This is fun. How can I do it differently? And the book itself is laid out, so every chapter has a little kind of personal story about where I realized something that I got wrong, and there was a better way of doing it. And that's really what I'm trying to talk about when I talk about productive laziness.
Yeah. it gets me interested because I'll often, Ronnie will correct me whenever I discuss this way, but I'm going to do it anyways. Is that I'll often like try to look at my two brain parts, right? And she'll say, Andy, it's never that simple. Your brain isn't broken into two parts. There's complexity. There's intertwinedness. We know that there's no left, right brain, but independent of that, I do sense for myself there's a more of a brain function which is related to big picture thinking, and then another brain function which is more detail oriented.
Yeah.
And I see that both obviously are required to do project management well, because you need to have a bigger picture vision of where you need to go over a time period, and you need to know the details that need to do step by step. So if you're looking at that, call it that breakdown, that dichotomy, how do you see good project managers functioning in their role?
I think that's the key. Is what I see so many times, the mistakes are that project managers stop looking at the big picture, because part of their job is to look at it, what's happening, what's coming towards me, because you never deliver a project in isolation. There's probably 20, 30, 50, 100 other projects going on inside an organization. So you need that high level view of like, how are we doing, where are we going, what are we going to be impacted by, what are the challenges. I'm preparing my team for it, as well as dropping down and going, I can look at that small piece of information in detail. It's having the two. And when project managers bury themselves in the detail, that's when usually they're kind of hit by the iceberg or whatever, the thing that they didn't look up and see what was coming towards them. And that's a big and common mistake with younger project managers. They forget to elevate themselves on a regular basis and start looking at the big.
I think that comes with fear as well. People get very detail oriented when they're scared the results aren't going to be met. I've found, at least.
Yeah, you can hide. I mean, I've been never a fan of giant project schedules and Gantt charts and stuff like. I've always avoided them as much as possible. But it's easy. It's a safe place to hide if you want to. Well, no, the plan's up to date. It's got everything in it. Yeah, but the world's out there. So it's you got to be able to bounce between the two. But I think the big picture is really, really important.
What I've often found is that in delivering projects, that if I am conscious of the real need from the client, not necessarily like all of the bells and whistles of what they're also talking about, but like if this one thing is solved for them, like 80% of what they need is solved. And I think that a lot of times people aren't able to crystallize that in a way that they focus on the right things when they're delivering projects. Is that something you'd have experience in as well, or what is your feeling on being able to crystallize the needs analysis, or whatever you'd phrase it?
Well, I'll go back to what I said earlier on. It's about constantly presenting the vision and purpose. Why are we doing this? If you can't present that to your project team, they're never going to be on board. And the reality is, you've got someone, you're running your project. You've got someone in America somewhere who's doing part-time on your project, but their manager is just up the corridor. Well, when things are being challenged, who are they going to go to and listen to first? Go to the manager who can walk down the corridor and start shouting at them or whatever. So, you really have to, one of the big tasks is to bring them into your project, make them feel part of that team, and to feel connected to the purpose, etc. And then you've got to get through. I mean, we know that the old classic of the team formation approach. The forming, storming, norming, and performing.
Yeah.
You've got to get through that very quickly. And projects are just, again, I think there's another dimension to that. Projects are also disrupting in the sense that you never get all of your resources on day one. Your project, you just don't. You can't. Projects can't afford to do that. Yeah. So you might have built up a lovely, happy team, and then suddenly, in 3 weeks' time, 5 more people join the team. Well, they are going to disrupt the team. They're going to push that performing team back into a storming phase, probably. And you as a project, all your work. And I said earlier on about AI being a great thing. This is where the project managers of the future are going to really benefit, because they can spend their time connecting and dealing with the people side of things. And I think we'd all agree that, when you've got a high performing team that's got high levels of trust, great communication, they can pretty much overcome anything, and they are self-managing to a greater degree as well. And that's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. Following on from your AI question, Bolalong asks, when AI is in place, will project managers still be called that name, or will they have another name that describes their role of relationship management?
I think project manager as a role is here for the foreseeable future. I mean, yes, you can play around with it, but I think it fits. I think people have kind of accepted it. It's just what that project manager spends most of their time doing is gonna change, and it's the other one I love around this is project manager is a verb, not an adjective. So get to doing stuff, get on and do it. Well, you're just going to be doing stuff with people. That's all. So I don't see it changing. If it changes, fine. I've got a problem with it. I'm not hung up about the title.
Yeah.
But I can't see it changing too rapidly. There's too much. There's some big organisations out there who've invested far too much in the term project manager and project management. Yeah. I think they will be incredibly resistant to the future, and most of them are particularly unprepared for AI as well, I think, really. But then that's another rant I could go on, and we probably have for that.
Well, bowl along. Maybe we'll call them the chief emotionally incapable officer. I've got some random questions for you that I think Ronnie also has.
Okay, go random.
450 presentations in 25 countries. Which country did you dislike most?
Dislike most? Oh,
I can tell you what I can tell you what I can already. I've done 25 countries as well. Okay. One comes to mind, and I'd love to see if we're aligned on that one country.
Oh my goodness me! What did I like? Oh, that's going to.
What's the hardest to reach the people? Most challenging to get them to sort of show any part of themselves.
I love this country. I'm going to say this. I'm
going to write it down. I'm going to write it down before you say it, because I want to align. I'm writing it down right now, and I'm going to love it. I'm going to love it if we're aligned on this. So please.
The only reason I'm picking on this country because every country is different, every culture is different, every people are different. The only reason I wrote this one down because this country, my first presentation, utterly bewildered me. Now, you remember, I was at the point the lazy project manager was taking off. It was being successful. Yes. I was doing presentations. I was getting a little bit overconfident, perhaps. And I went to this country and I did a presentation, and there was nothing.
Oh yes.
This is also
nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay, this is getting interesting.
I organised it. Came up to me after, he said, "That was very good, Peter." How could you tell? The country was Sweden, actually. And
damn it!
Oh,
my prediction was Finland. My prediction was Finland.
Scandinavia.
Did you do one in Finland as well or not?
I did one in Finland as well. The one I did in Finland was actually in a pub, so it was different.
Okay.
Yeah, not a pub.
Okay.
But it wasn't the fact that it didn't go well. I wasn't ready for the way they react. That's what.
But I noticed that the Scandinavians are unforgiving. Like I had to do years of presenting, and I remember my last presentation was in Finland, and I did it 3 times, and they never laughed. There was like a straight face. So in order to it was my last presentation, it was almost like I had nothing to lose. So I said to them, here's what I'm going to do. I said, whenever I say anything I think is funny, I'm going to let you know that I thought this was a moment you could have laughed. So basically I went through my presentation, and then I kept saying, so guys, this is a moment when I imagine one might laugh if they thought that this could be fun. And then finally they laughed. So they laughed at the fact that I had to call attention to the moment I thought was funny. That was
cool.
That's how I broke the Finnish market.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So as I say, it's a lovely country. I've been there many times, and it's gone well. And that one went well. I just wasn't expecting how to read the concept of it going well, because to me it was like there's nothing.
Yeah, that's hard, I think, when you're doing it. But 450 of these things.
Yeah.
Like, how does your life change post-COVID? Because obviously you're not doing those in person. Have you shifted?
Remote. I did about 50 last year, I think, something like that. They were all remote. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a new challenge. It's a lot of obviously Teams and Zoom presentations, WebEx, etc. I use Menti as a tool to help kind of create some interaction. Menti's a lovely little poll survey kind of that instantly brings the visuals up on the screen so you can see as people vote. It brings people in, they feel safe. So it's okay. It's okay. I do really look forward to the next time I can go out and walk on stage. I'll be honest, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
So are there aspects of project management that has to be, that will change forever because our experience with COVID, that,
Yeah.
people may work
Um,
separately from one another physically?
yeah.
Interesting.
No, I think, and it's a good question. I think it is about the fact that it's going to be a hybrid world when we go back. It's already was there. Again, we're already seeing the typical projects were involving resources from all over the world that didn't necessarily have everyone physically met each other. The days of having a kickoff meeting with all the project team are long, long gone. I think, I'm doing a lot of work in the area of project team performance and project team analytics. I'm helping a startup company called Perflow there to try and do some work in this area, because I think that's really important, is how can you help these teams work very effectively together? And it's all about, micro pulses, nudges, feedback, sentiment, measurement, etc. Because it all supports this. If you have a great team, as a project manager, if you can look and go, mate, my team's doing well and they're happy with each other, then you're going to succeed in some shape or form. So I think it's more an acceleration of that, Arani, I think.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
what I can imagine as well, we talked about politics before. Politics can be a strengthening force or a destructive force. And with us, with now during COVID, that we are separated physically and we have to work really task oriented. And
Mhm.
you can imagine that the distraction of politics, of gossips, of that kind of thing is removed, so people can actually do their
I think
job
it's harder.
better.
I think it's harder to manipulate people in this way, and I think the growth of the technology allows for, expansive social collaboration. Again, breaks down these barriers, because you no longer have this kind of centralized, strong governance, hierarchical structure, because the power is with the collective. The power is truly with the people, in the sense that they're all on the same communication boards and they can all have a say, and we all feel. And I have seen this. I think people are more open to saying something on a platform like this than they necessarily would be in a room, because we know there's always strong characters and quieter characters. And I think this is quite leveling in many ways.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You said
kind of good thing.
you said something that I immediately I'd never heard of it in this shape and form, and it made all the sense in the world. And when you use the word sentiment,
an accident then. Sorry.
no, you said sentiment measurement.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because they'll often, on a quarterly or a half yearly basis, companies will do their intake and say, hey, take out these questionnaires and we're going to measure and do benchmarking of where we are.
Yeah.
But what I'm hearing, and this, as you said it, I thought, wow, that makes all the sense in the world. If you're running a project, if I just sent out like a pulse of how confident are you and how well are you feeling in this role, and how, like if I just do a pulse, is that really what a sentiment measurement is, or what is that? Is it
like literally in the moment? I mean, the idea of this thing is, the technology uses existing tool, whether you're using Slack or Teams or anything like that. It's not adding apps. There's no software that's added to that. But what it's doing is that you've just, you build it on either periodic or you get certain activities. Literally, we could have finished this call and we'd all receive a little kind of micro pulse check. What do you think? Did you like it? Yes, no, smiley face, happy, for whatever it may be. End of. On top of that, you've also got, with AI, you've got the ability to kind of look at the linguistic profile of the terms that are used, the way reports are written. All of this can come together, and it can say, this is how your team feels today. And tomorrow it might be slightly different. Someone might be slightly pissed off today. Tomorrow they might be happy again. Yeah. And so it's constantly looking at how do they feel about the team, this project, their view of the likely project success, any recommendations, that kind of thing. You don't bother people much. You literally gamify it. You make it nice and simple. But what you're doing is getting constant little checkpoints, as opposed to a milestone review, an end of project review.
Exactly. That's what I thought was nice. You can get a pulse. I've got a trick question for you. Okay. In an organization, which group is going to have the highest scores in general when it comes to these type of assessments?
Qualify the question a little bit.
Okay. So if I do a pulse question where I'm saying, how well are we feeling? How good is our department? Are we living our values?
HR, they go off the wall.
That was the obvious answer. I didn't, I've always laughed.
Yeah, happy face, smiley face, happy face. Whoop whoop. Yeah, they're there. Absolutely.
It's always HR. HR is like, if you want to see the highest performing organization, even though they might have the highest turnover, it's going to be HR.
So when HR actually has lower points, what does it say? Actually, it happened.
Does it?
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's impressive. I mean, it says that they actually are honest. That's what it says. Yeah. And for those watching, for those who may not understand, at least for me, my psychology on this one is very simple, is that they're the ones that are being rated on the performance. So they're basically rating their own performance when they look at performance usually.
Yeah. I love your expression when you answer that question. Yeah, sure. Like, what would it do? For others, it's not that obvious, So.
I didn't think it was that obvious. I didn't even know if you get it that quickly, but it was clear that it was, yes.
No, we're aligned on that. We're totally aligned on that.
Oh, funny. So if somebody is wanting to get into this and they haven't really done it, what would you say to them? This is what you need to do in order to get started off in project management as a role you might have.
I think there are many entry points into project management. I mean, there is the formal career path, training, colleges, universities, etc. But you don't have to do that. You can learn on the job. I mean, many organisations have, project controller or project assistant type role. You can go and work inside a project management office as part of it. And there are a lot of communities out there. I know I kind of was a little bit anti some of the major organisations out there. But I think their local meetings, their local chapter meetings, they run a lot of great sessions where you can meet and greet and get to know other project managers. You can just turn up. They'll certainly let you turn up for the first one for free, and it doesn't cost much after that anyway. No. I think there are a lot of ways to just get exposed to the world of project management to see if you like it. And there's a lot of free stuff out there. There's a lot of, particularly after last year, there's huge amounts out there. That you can go and get to just have some insights, webinars that have been produced by people like me and many others. Connect to people on LinkedIn. I'm huge on LinkedIn, and please send me an invitation. I think there are lots of ways you can go and connect, validate, and see if this is for you.
Yeah, and if people want to because we're coming to the end of our hour, so it'd be nice to at least guide people to materials that you have that they might be interested in. Like, where would people find information or stuff that you would be offering online? Or
yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, definitely connect to me on LinkedIn. But the other one is I have the website. It is thelazyprojectmanager.com, lazyprojectmanager.com, and all the stuff's on there. There's a lot of, lots of blogs, lots of articles, videos, etc., and ways to get hold of me if you want to.
Great. Well, we're just about to hit the end of our hour.
Wow, yeah, unbelievable. I would think that this is quite a heavy topic for a Friday afternoon for
I don't do
long
boring.
weekend.
I don't do boring. Wow. I mean, again, the heart of a good project manager is also one that has a lot of fun. Again, you're back to the people side of things, isn't it? Build some fun into it. I mean, I get bored if I don't have a laugh in 60 minutes. So,
yeah.
Yeah. And how is the project management for your wedding coming along?
It's coming along well. I don't know if you're aware of what the date of the wedding, but it is actually the 11th of September. So this is a 9/11 wedding.
No, I didn't know that. No, and I don't know if Juliet invited me. So I also, if you're on, Juliet, I'm going to let you know I'm very offended that I was not invited. But actually, I'm not sure that she was invited to our wedding.
Yeah, I'm saying
because it was her ex was here, so I had to call her independently and say, "Listen, I'm not inviting you, but I'm doing it purposefully." So we had a nice interaction.
No, she has mentioned that. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Did she hold it against me or not?
I'll let her answer that one. I'll let her answer. She understood. No, she understood. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah. It's never. I always love to stay in connection with people, but their lives change, and all of a sudden you have to figure out how to navigate all the crazy in other people's lives as well.
I tell you what, just to kind of wrap up my side of things on this, and thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's been good fun. If I was to sum Juliet up, she is a wonderful chaos.
Yeah, she is. She is, and she wanted to make sure that we'll leave it on Juliet with the stars in her eyes. We haven't sent invitations out yet. Okay.
I don't know why she's saying that. We sent them 3 months ago.
Exactly. I love it. Well, I thank you very much. It was
Thank
great being with
you.
you. It was great meeting you. We know of
Yeah.
each other for ages. And by the way, the funniest thing was that I was told that we looked very similar to one another.
The first time when we saw you on like as picture, and
Yeah.
we thought, yeah, actually,
And then I
this is
said,
not too
yes.
crazy
So
similarity.
so
And
I didn't
yeah.
ask you that first question was, do we look the same? Yes.
Well,
So
that was many years ago. So
many
Yeah,
years
well,
ago.
you
I
guys
I
grow up
put the
differently.
glasses on. Does that help? I don't know. No, I still don't see it. I still don't see it.
Me
Yeah,
neither.
no.
Thank you very much. It was great
Thank
being
No,
with you.
you.
Yeah.
it's been good fun,
Yeah.
though.
Thank you.
You,
Yeah.
Bye.
one day.
Until we meet in person. Yes.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye then.
Bye.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, that's actually quite interesting.
Yeah. It was it's interesting because I like you said, when you take on a topic like project management, you automatically think it's going to be more clinical and more structured, and
Yeah, corporate, you know.
yeah, and I really enjoyed just digging into the, because I think there's the things we talk about, and then there's the reality.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also for me, the realization that a lot of things can be a project. You don't have to be working in a, big organization or corporation or big project. Even little things that you do in your life can be a project.
Yeah.
You know, fixing the roof is a project.
Yeah, I noticed that I always have, like, I would call that more personal management. And I always see that I have, like I mentioned earlier, like these tools. Like, I start with my inbox, I go to my calendar. When that gets too busy, then I go to this application I use that Do.
Yeah.
And then when I get really busy, then I pick out the piece of paper, and then I draw out the categories of things I need to do, and then I write in a list. And whenever I get there, it feels a bit more overwhelming, and I try to, like, cut down again,
Yeah.
because I just don't like to get
Yeah.
that. I don't want my task list to define my life.
And that's only one person project, basically. huh?
Exactly. Yeah, that's a one-person project. So your life in the corporate is far busier and more intense than mine is. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're managing a lot more things and a lot more people at the same time. I only have to manage this, and that thing is a wonderful chaos up there. So thank you for joining us. We won't be here on Monday because it's Easter.
It's second Easter day, so I think in the whole Europe it's a holiday.
It's a
but,
holiday.
not in the U.S.
No, there's not many holidays in the U.S. They actually have slave labor
Well,
there.
today it's a holiday in the U.S.
Is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
so it's a
really?
bit crazy
Oh,
because
funny.
we work and they don't work, and Monday
I didn't
we
know
don't
that.
work, they work.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And hopefully Bambos will feel better, and then we'll have him back on Tuesday for that show. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Have a nice weekend.
Thank you.
It's great being
everyone.
with you on.
Bye. A wonderful chaos.
Yes, it is.